Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program of the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Carl.
And I'm Faithless Forrest. And we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and unfettered by supernatural beliefs.
And today's show is about words. Some words we use and what we mean. Sometimes we have to define what we mean by words very carefully.
But first we want, I stepped on you. But first we want to tell viewers about the show's sponsors. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's in the Old City starting at around 5:30. Look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. And as Matt Delahunty at Atheist Experience says, everyone is welcome for our happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
Later in the show, we'll give you our websites for additional information, details, times, locations.
All righty. We've got the Rationalists to plug here. The Rationalists have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Saturday mornings of the month are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday we hold the Skeptics Book Club, and on the fourth Sunday we're mixing it up sometimes with a get-together we call a reflections meeting. It features a potluck, usually in someone's home, and sometimes we meet to play board games or get together for activities, and last weekend we did an Adopt a Highway pickup. All righty. So, I guess, Carl, in the news, did you bring some news for me and our viewers?
Yes, but you confused me with host 4.
Yeah, these things happen. Did I skip over anything?
No, I did. I skipped that whole paragraph.
Yeah, I think we're ready to get into the news then.
Okay, well, the current news, Democratic Convention, Cory Booker stands up for atheists, said that...
What did he say?
He stood up for atheists. No. He basically mentioned non-believers, people who didn't believe in the talk, included them in the whole group.
And I guess maybe it was at his second inauguration that Barack Obama, made the first presidential reference to non-believers as well. Maybe it was his first inauguration speech, where he said something like people of all faiths and no faiths.
Well, interesting thing too is that Cory Booker was one of the choices, one of the last 5 candidates for a speaker at the Minicon after the Reason Rally for the Sunday Assembly.
Oh.
They end up picking an astronomer whose name I don't recall, but he's head of the largest telescope array. Can't remember her name.
Okay.
Also, Hillary Clinton rejects religious tests in politics and defends the Constitution. And that was part of an interview for 60 Minutes that wasn't actually shown on air, but it was. They did post it later where you could see it, and she said, "quote Bringing religion to our political system." She defends the Constitution, rejects bringing religion into the political process. So that was good to hear.
All righty. Well, not everything's been peachy keen about bringing religion into the Democratic
process?
Party process.
You wouldn't be referring to David Duke, would you?
Yeah. Well, no. I'm referring, though, I guess it was officials of the DNC had apparently been scheming to affect the outcome of the presidential primaries by trying to make Bernie Sanders talk about his religious beliefs, feeling that might undermine his support.
And actually, this rejection I mentioned earlier with Clinton was in reference to that.
Meaning that she said we aren't going there?
Yeah, she said she wasn't aware that they were doing that, and she didn't approve of it.
Okay. Well, good for her.
I jumped ahead to David Duke. He's going to be running again. He's been encouraged by some of the political stances taken to encourage the religious right extreme groups to be more active. So he's running in Louisiana for the Senate.
Louisiana, all right.
And also was a study done it showed that the sex education programs funded by the United States for Africa during the years 2004 to 2013, they spent $1.something billion.
1.3, I think, was the number I had read somewhere.
And a study found out that it was a failure, surprisingly.
Yes, the pejorative term for that kind of program is that it's ignorance-only education, and ignorance doesn't work.
It worked for some people.
Yeah, well.
But also they found out from that study that the number one thing that did work was the number of years women remained in school reduced, was much more effective than abstinence-only education. So,
as Christopher Hitchens says, the best thing we can do to improve civilization is the empowerment of women.
And that study demonstrated that.
Yes, indeed. All righty. Well, so today's topic is words. We got words to talk about. Often when we're talking with people, especially when I'm talking about non-belief, I get the impression that they don't have a good understanding of the vocabulary about all of that. So,
just to step on you again, a lot of times it seems like the Freethought community has some trouble with that too.
It's a common conversation we have with first-time attendees. We will discuss these very words. So, words and what we mean. Can we move to the atheist slide, Sam? All right. So atheist or atheism is a disbelief or a lack of belief in the existence of God or gods. Notice we've got the uppercase God here and then gods plural, because it's important to remember that
I need to practice doing that. That's pretty cool.
They tickle. That, the Christian God isn't the only God that we should be reminding people have been, followed by humans and are being followed by humans, and to the extent that
and dogs.
For those of us who are dyslexic, we follow dogs as well.
Dogs have a different idea of what a god is.
Okay. There's a good joke on that.
I threw you off.
Yes. But there's, and I would have, my usage of this word, my current usage of this word is formed heavily by Larry Rhodes. In our conversations, he convinced me that it's really good to narrow this word down and say that atheism is, in a sense, an answer about one question and one question only. Do you believe in a God or gods? And if the answer is no, you are an atheist. And if we move to the next slide, which is agnosticism.
I got something to say about this.
Oh, wait.
But you can keep that slide.
I was thinking it was going to go to agnosticism, but it wasn't. And because I tell the story a little differently each time. You were going to say?
I was going to say something, yes. But I guess it's time to throw in that my favorite quote on since a lot of times atheism is considered to be a philosophy, which it isn't. I'm going to throw in the Wittgenstein quote.
Okay.
He said, quote, "Philosophy is a battle against the..." Try that again. "Philosophy is a battle against the bewitchment of our intelligence by means of language."
All righty.
And we're not trying to bewitch our intelligence.
And if by bewitchments we mean maybe clouding judgment, we're trying to clear that up by saying, this is what we mean by certain words, so that we're real clear.
Well, I think another part of that, too, is getting so entangled in words and reifications and everything else that people get so entangled in the words, they start to not really be relevant sometimes to what's actually going on.
And if my assumption of the connotations of a word are different than your assumption, we can talk right past each other. So Larry Rhodes' usage of the word atheism is really regarding the conclusion about the existence of a God, or do you believe in a God? And notice it's a question about belief. Now, let's go to the next slide, which I guess is theism. All right, so a theist is a person who believes in a God. So that word is more general than to say merely, let's say, a Christian, which most of the believers or theists in the United States are going to be Christian. That's why they run around saying, we're a Christian nation, we're a Christian nation, as if that was an accomplishment or something. But
It would be an accomplishment because it's not what happened.
yeah, well, I'm not even sure how can a nation be Christian or
Well,
Jewish or Buddhist, or a nation is an organization of people, and with maybe the possible exception of saying, oh well, we're going to organize all our laws strictly and only by a holy book. It's a kind of a claim that is vacuous.
Well, that really relates to the quote I mentioned earlier about English being a woolly language and that it can have a lot of different meanings. And that's a case where the game is being played of using the word in two different ways, or the two words, the phrase in two different ways, and that a Christian nation can mean majority of people are Christian, which is changing now. But they, of course, then morph that into it was established as being a Christian-based nation.
And I'm not even sure what that would mean, Christian-based, meaning...
It means Christian laws, Christian base for our... the claim is that the Constitution was based on Christian principles rather than...
Based on Christian principles, but that is still yet a different claim than to say we are a Christian nation, I would think.
Well, that's the whole muddlement.
That's why we're having an argument over words here, yeah. So, but we're on theism. So a theist believes in a God or gods. So if you believe in a God, whether it is the God of Abraham, or whether it is one of the many Hindu gods, I'll reveal my ignorance if I try to name any at this point, or if you like to follow
Hare Krishna.
Well, I was going to say the Wiccan things and stuff that are a little like nature worship, but assume a supernatural spirit thing. You are a theist, and to have a religion is to have a theology, and an atheist is someone who simply does not have that. A wonderful joke to drive home the implications of these words was made by Richard Dawkins, and that is, we sometimes say, he says, we ask the question, why do we have to have a word for non-believers? It's a little bit absurd that we even have to, but of course there is, the case he uses is to say you don't have a hobby of not collecting stamps, for instance. We've been alerted there's a call, so let's do this. Caller, you're on Freethought Forum. Can we get a name or a nickname?
That one you just used is fine. Caller is okay.
Hello, caller. All right. Do you got a word for us, or have you called to answer the question on your screen?
I called to make a correction, I guess, or
right.
ask you if a correction would...
Did I make a spelling error already?
No, you haven't made a spelling error. However, Christopher Hitchens doesn't say anything about women anymore, but I wasn't going to bring that up.
All right.
No, this, as I'm looking at the screen here, it says theist, and you're talking about words.
Yeah.
And Rush Limbaugh is on the radio all the time, and he says words mean things, so I'm figuring that's what y'all are doing today. But this theist
Yeah.
that you have there, you did know that it is misspelled.
No, I didn't. That's why I asked the question. I am responsible.
Okay, I thought it was like a joke you were doing.
No,
Yes,
I'm responsible for novel spelling here on the show. It is my superpower.
Okay. Well, anyway, I tried looking up what you have on the screen there, and
Yeah.
and my spell checker says you got to be kidding.
All right. Well, for the benefit, if I ever should reuse this slide, what is the proper spelling, caller?
Theist, theist. Can you use it as in a sentence, please?
The theist invoked his God to bring down wrath on our nation.
And bad spellers.
And bad spellers.
That, however, however mean that might sound from a God, is a correct use of the word theist.
Yeah, okay.
Meaning that theists believe in a God that does things.
Very good. All
in
right.
a God that cooperates, in a personal God, in a God that you can pray to have you win the lottery, or that you can pray to for that pregnancy test to be negative.
Yeah. I would argue that any God that doesn't do those things
arguing
doesn't.
It would be with the Oxford Dictionary, because
Yeah.
I don't do defining things.
Yeah.
I have an agreement with them.
But
Anyway,
there are.
they define theist as a God that does things, that interacts with reality, if you will, the world.
Well, caller, I think that has been helpful, and I think next time I use this slide, I'll try and augment it with that.
Well, what I'm getting at there, though, is that you put theism as a belief in gods or God or gods. If
Sure.
you believe in a God that does not sin floods or kill people, or a less vengeful God,
Yeah.
then you would not necessarily be a theist.
A deist.
Part of the point about our usage of this word, though, is having to do with the conclusion about the existence of the supernatural, not necessarily its role or its activism. Now,
Well,
I am in favor.
You might want to choose another word for that belief then, because theism isn't exactly it.
And I'm in favor always of coining new words when we can add finer definition. But you're apparently out of that game because of your agreement with the Oxford Dictionary. So that leaves it to Carl and I here and other callers.
To be bewitched.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've often heard people ask, what is your definition of foot, or what is your definition of bicycle? Whereas, we got this dictionary that, words mean things according to Mr. Limbaugh.
Yeah.
So
No,
that theist part.
words are mean things, according to Mr. Limbaugh.
That's true. Anyway, I was wondering about that because I look up atheism, and I often hear people say, like you had on the thing there, that I don't believe in God or gods, and then when I ask again, it is I see no evidence for the existence of God or gods.
Well, caller, hold that thought. Sam, I need you to move forward a couple of slides to agnosticism or agnostic. All right, so caller, is your slide, are you watching us live or via the stream with the delay?
I can see you.
All righty. So agnostic or agnosticism addresses the issue about knowledge and about what we think we can know. And that is a different thing than the belief.
Okay.
Read what the slide says for us. Agnostic says that we do not know, or perhaps even cannot know, about gods.
Interesting, though, Ingersoll saw no difference between agnostic and atheist.
The usage of these words have morphed, and it could be to avoid, let's say, social ostracism, that people would use the agnostic word rather than the atheist word.
Well,
and it is.
atheist, now, I don't know why you're doing this, but atheist means without theism or without a God that performs personal tasks or duties or beseechings. Agnostic means without gnost, knowledge, without knowledge, if you break the words down.
Right.
So if you're an atheist, you can say, according to the Oxford Dictionary, I'm a person who does not believe in a God who you can pray to and sacrifice to get things done, or who punishes me. That's the sort of... So in that regard, you would be saying, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in a God, and here's the type of God I don't believe in by virtue of the fact that I am an atheist.
All right.
So atheist.
So, caller, you're doing a great job of leading me right to the next slide. Sam, we need the next slide with all four here. All right. So, caller, the way we use the word atheist and agnostic and the antonyms lends itself to this sort of four-dimensional grid. And we can talk about an agnostic atheist who doesn't believe in a God, but also says, well, maybe we don't really have enough evidence. And we might have an agnostic theist who says, you know, I don't have evidence, but I believe anyway. And then we might have a Gnostic atheist who says that, what have I written there? Believes there's evidence for no God, or disbelieves in God.
Now I understand. Why you open the show with the talk about politics. Because now it seems to me like you're evoking the spirit of that politician that said, there are knowns that we know, and there are knows that we don't know, and unknowns that we do know, and so forth and so on.
It was a former defense secretary, yeah. So let's finish the quadrant here. Then we have a Gnostic theist who believes there's evidence of gods and believes in gods. All right. Now, my often co-host Larry Rhodes will self-describe as an agnostic atheist, meaning he doesn't know. I think by that he means he feels he can't prove there are no gods. I parse the word slightly differently, and I say I am a Gnostic atheist. And by that I mean I believe that the claims about gods are strong enough that we can disprove them. And so if we go to the book about the God of Abraham, it has in the first or second chapter a talking snake. Now, we can know that people who make stories about talking snakes are writing, if not children's stories, at least myth. If we can know anything, we can know that that's myth.
Oh, but somebody arguing with you would say it wasn't a snake, it was a serpent.
And
I don't know.
Okay, caller, let me address that.
On YouTube say I love you.
Yeah, right. And you know that these are stories made to entertain.
Now, if a dog can say I love you, couldn't a God say I hate you?
But that's not what this talking snake was doing. He was giving dietary advice.
We're an amazing tangle of words here.
That's why we're digging into this. So, caller,
yeah,
I really believe that every religion that humanity has offered us can be disproven that easily. And that's why I would call myself a Gnostic atheist. That there remains no religion that is tenable in any way.
Well, I think another way to look at it is the better you define your God, the easier it is to disprove.
Exactly.
Oh, very good.
Exactly.
Very good. I like that.
And I think they're all defined well enough to be disprovable.
Well, that's an interesting.
I'm prepared to hear about some more, but the Abraham.
How about the deist God?
The Abrahamic religion dies with the talking snake.
The deist
talking snake. And I know snakes can't talk because snakes are all deaf. And if they, who would,
deaf people can talk.
Well, the deaf people can talk, but they don't normally listen to each other.
Yeah. All right. Well, caller, you raised the issue of deism, and since why don't we talk about that briefly, and then we'll ask you to clear the line in hopes we'll get some more people to argue with us as effectively as you have.
Well, I think one point about deism is that if you go by the criteria like Pascal Boyer and Religion Defined, and other people, there are certain criteria that really make gods and religion, especially gods and supernatural entities, appealing to humans. And the deist God is not appealing to humans. It has some intellectual appeal to people who don't really believe in gods very much. But as far as the personal God sort of thing, and so the deist God isn't really a God because it doesn't really fit the criteria of anything anybody wants as a God.
So, caller, give us your pitch for
nobody
deism.
wants the deist God like
No,
Jefferson, Franklin,
nobody, as in the majority of people who
Washington,
I made the earlier statement, except for are you going to interrupt me? Intellectual standards of people who don't really believe seriously in the supernatural. Those are people that take it to an intellectual level, and it's not really the same kind of God that anybody else on the supernatural level is talking about.
Right, that's not a supernatural one. No, if you want to believe in ghosts and UFOs and things like that, you'd probably want to stick to Christianity or one of the other religions where you can have your enemy, destroyed and such like that. But anyway, let me get off the line here.
Hey, caller,
You've got a great show going on here.
Thank you.
You have some other callers waiting to get in line.
Thank you so much for calling in and helping move me through the slides.
There you go.
Yeah,
Talk to you later.
Something really aggravates, well, it doesn't aggravate me because they kind of lead themselves into a trap, but a lot of times I get in discussion with people who are religious, and they'll go through and they'll start with the Christian God, and they keep cutting things down trying to prove that God exists.
Yeah.
And by the time they get through trying to find enough evidence to say there's just some hint of that God, they have far lost the Christian God or the other God anybody else is talking about.
And that's why I begin the conversation often by saying, do you mean the God of Abraham? And then I get, because I don't expect all Christians to know that that is their God, I then say the one with the talking snake, because they do usually recognize that. Of course, puts them on defensive. And I have an answer for that. In fact, I hope caller has tuned his audio back up. Serpent is a French word, and snake is an Anglo-Saxon word. Snake is an Anglo-Saxon word, which is Germanic for a snake. Serpent is a French word, which is to say a Latin word for snake. They're both the same words. They stem from the same thing. And it is a distinction without meaning to invoke that. What's more is, in the Old Testament, there is no identification of the serpent with something like the enemy or Satan. That's New Testament work. So apparently, in all of the books of alleged revelation that are the Old Testament, God never got around to mentioning that the snake was the bad guy.
Well, actually, I've heard some arguments that the snake was the good guy in that story. But
well, the Satanists will say that the Satanic Temple will say that while it's all man-made myth, Lucifer is the good guy, because if the Bible be true, he gave humanity the whole world, not merely a garden. All righty. Let's see, we're not quite at the halfway point. Should we? Let's go through one more slide here, the humanism slide. I wonder if I have any misspellings in that.
Yeah, it is spelled wrong.
Humanism is a philosophical and ethical stance that emphasizes the value and agency of human beings individually and collectively. In other words, a humanist says the human condition is important, whereas a theist might say that God is important and our service to God is important. The worst book I have ever read is called The Purpose-Driven Life by Warren, I think may have been his name. It is an appalling book because it is essentially saying that human beings and our works are of no value. That it is only our obedience and love of God that is of value. And that kind of idea could lead to extremely immoral behavior by one human being against his fellow human being. And although I kind of, in a sense, would feel bad or hate to kick someone when he's down and I don't feel glee over someone else's misfortune, but that man lost his son to suicide. And I can't help but think that should have been a big wake-up call to Rick Warren, that he had badly misplaced the emphasis of what is the human condition.
Of course, that's what Dan Barker's book before last was a life-driven purpose, which is the way it should be for us.
I've not read that book. I enjoy Dan's music so much, and I bought Losing Faith in Faith, and it's a delightful read because his narrative voice is strong, and having met him a few times, reading that book, you're in his presence, and it's a nice experience.
Yeah, he pretty much, not pretty much. He really just shows how that's the wrong approach to life, and that we define our purpose, and purpose is actually like to him, a lot of it's just solving problems and having something to do in life that's meaningful to you.
You want to greet our caller?
You can.
All right, caller, welcome to Freethought Forum TV. Can we get a name or a nickname, please?
It's Charles from Central Illinois.
Hello, Charles.
Yeah, I have a word.
Give us a word. That's what today's program is all about.
It would be anti-theist.
Anti-theist.
Yes.
I didn't make a slide for that. That's a great one, though. I should have. Yeah, anti-theist. Charles, how do you define anti-theist for us, our fellow viewers?
An anti-theist states a positive belief that God or gods do not exist. Hello?
Yeah, I'm writing it down. A positive belief that gods do not exist.
That could really be the poly-anti-theist.
There we go. That's a poly-anti-theist if we're doing gods don't exist. And now, it's interesting you define it that way. I've used the word, and I mean a slightly different thing. When I use it, I would self-identify as anti-theist, and by that I mean I'm against theology, meaning beliefs, and the idea that belief in the supernatural has value. In fact, I think it's highly destructive.
I think we need a new term for that.
All right, suggest one. That's what we're doing today. Words.
For instance, you know of Aaron Ra.
I've watched a few of his programs. Aaron Ra is for our viewers. Aaron Ra is it can be seen on many YouTube programs. He speaks often on evolutionary biology. I think that's his expertise, and it's like A-R-O-N or A-R.
A-R-O-N, capital R-A.
R-A, as if he's. I think he's echoing an Egyptian god there.
Yes, he is.
All right.
But he got a word for a young woman by the name of Kate Farr, who on YouTube is known as Bionic Dance, and I don't know how to spell it. It's called atheist, a person that does not have faith in a religious sense.
Okay, so it's apathist.
Yes.
Now.
In other words, they don't take things for granted simply because it's written in a sacred text or something like that.
I'm struggling to figure out what the roots are here. I was trying to think you meant something like apathy, but I don't. I think you're saying something a little bit like opposed to theism.
Opposed to blind faith would be the best way to put it.
Which is really the original meaning of Freethought. Essentially, blind faith and authority.
I did not make a slide for Freethought either, but I would contest that. Freethought was a plea simply to say, I want to be able to express my honest opinion.
It was against authority, too.
Yeah.
Authority as in church authority, primarily.
And it was a counter against the word blasphemy. When someone charges you with blasphemy, the response would be, I claim the right to have free thoughts and to be able to express my thoughts freely.
Of course.
Yeah.
Charles, I've come off. I forgot. What was there another point you were making? I'm completely lost.
The point is the word that comes to mind when I think of the religious authorities, the extreme religious authorities, is authoritarian. Okay? In fact, there's a book written out on there about authoritarians. And it's how a lot of the religious people reacted to anybody that challenged whether or not any of their statements were true or not, which is, vicious and cruel.
And so instead of addressing the accuracy of the claim, they simply would use authority to punish. To punish. And punishment might be including to the death.
Oh, and I do have a comment about your shirt that I've been trying to make for a while.
Yes.
You say nothing fails like prayer.
It's not an original.
I'd say, go ahead.
It's not an original statement on my part. I believe it's attributed to one of the
Four Horsemen?
one of the early founders of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Dan Martyr.
Well, I was going to say Anne Nicole Gaylor.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was.
I think it is attributed to her. But go on, Charles.
Yes, there is. It's called abstinence-only sex education.
All right.
And I'm serious about that because if you
appear.
look at where the abstinence-only sex education is the dominant sex education, you'll find the largest amount of illegitimacy, the largest amount of underage pregnancies, the largest amount of sexually transmitted diseases,
Yep.
things of that nature.
Yep. Ignorance ignorant
Is
ground
not
is fertile
bliss.
ground for all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, ignorance is not bliss in this regard.
Except maybe for 5 minutes.
All right. So now I've got another slide to work up. Nothing fails like prayer and abstinence-only education.
Because you can find the data online, for instance. Aaron Wall mentioned it several times in his, as well as, let's see, the Thinking Atheists, otherwise known as Seth Andrews, and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's out there.
You know, one thing I think is interesting about all these terms is basically ideology itself is an issue. And a lot of this just fits under the general category of ideology. And when people say, well, non-religious people have done violent things like Stalin and Hitler, who was kind of questionable. But really, the problem is ideology, which has to do with authoritarianism.
With unquestioning acceptance of
Yeah.
ideas or an authority that's so strong that they can disregard protests. I'm sometimes of the opinion that any society that develops a sufficiently free press is probably going to prosper, where a free press can point out the follow-bys of government and the assumptions that the government will have to respond to that.
So I think that's one area where the Freethought community kind of comes short, because it focuses just on religious ideology. Ideology itself is a serious problem.
All righty. Charles, it's hot summertime here. How is it in central Illinois?
Oh, yesterday we had a heat index of 109.
You may have beaten us then.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Well, let's say enjoy your summer days. August will be soon upon us. And when next you see this show, it will be August. And
Ouch. I'm very upset about that.
And well, I mourn the passing of long days. So let us wish you a good one. Goodbye for now.
See you later then. Bye.
All right. Charles lives near a train track, and I think I heard the train coming again. Hey, we're at a little over the midway point here, so if you could find the mid-program break stuff, I'll jump in and do the first section. In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions.
I found the closing first.
All right. Take the one that says host 2.
All right, it doesn't say 4, so I'm good. Shows are live most every Tuesday, but it's changed now, from 5 to 6 Eastern on Knoxville Community Access Television, Channel 12, or Channel 194, depending on your local cable network. Tell your out-of-town friends to see us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
Today's show is live. It is July 26th, I believe, 2016. And you can call in on the number on our screen while we take a short break and also watch this short, informative video about our sponsors.
Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else? Well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
All right, well, welcome back. We got a caller call in during the program break. Let's do this. Hello, caller. Can you give us a name or a nickname? Hello, Al. Thank you for calling. Today's topic, we're talking about words, and you see the question on the screen. What is your comment or question?
Well, the question's on the screen. What if God exists?
So, and that's meant to remind Carl and I here to have a conversation. We're actually to repeat a conversation we had years and years ago. But Al, what if God exists?
I know if God exists. I'm asking you. I said,
Al,
you
sure.
Question.
You asked me. I'm going to answer, Al. I'm going to answer, Al. I'm going to answer, Al. And I guess I'm going to answer it one way for you, and I'll answer it a different way for Carl. But I'm going to say, it turns out that the god is Isis. Isis is the god of Egyptian justice.
No.
Who will send to eternal oblivion those persons.
Not the god.
Okay.
Isis is not the god.
But Al, you asked me what if God exists, and I just answered you. Now you're making
you told me Isis is?
Now Isis is a female Egyptian deity. That's confusing because there's this Islamic movement that has the same name. But Isis is the Egyptian deity of justice. Of all of the man-made gods, Isis is the best.
Okay, there's only one God.
Al, how do you know that?
Because I read it. I got it in my hands right here.
What? What you got? What?
King James Bible.
Oh, that's a book, Al. I'm pretty sure if you look.
This is God's book. Every word is from God.
But Al, those books are published by humans, are they not? Every one is published by humans.
The first book ever published when the printing press came out was the Bible.
Wasn't the King James now, was it?
Yes, it was.
It wasn't the first book ever published. It was the first one with the printing press, not the first book ever published.
Yeah.
Gutenberg, whose original name was Gooseflesh, when he invented the printing press, the first book that King James allowed to be printed was the Bible, the King James Bible, because King James was the king at that time.
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying it wasn't the first book published.
It was the first book printed.
Yes, not the first book published.
And you're only, and the further qualification is with movable type.
Movable type, of course. The invention of the printing press.
Yeah. Well, there were printing presses before that with blocks and so on. And I guess there's even claims that the Chinese had invented movable type as well. So really, what you're saying is that in Europe,
we have now.
I've actually read.
But Al, it's a book written by human beings and published by human beings.
It's a book written by human beings that were inspired by God to put every word down in the King James Bible.
And you're just taking that on its own claim, its face value.
No, it claims it itself. It's inspired.
Exactly, Al. And
inspiration.
And Al, but the Egyptians got you beat, though.
Yeah.
They say that theirs are 1,000,000 times true. Al, that's 999,990 times more true than your book.
And their book
That's
was,
not true.
their gods were around a lot longer than yours.
The reason
Yeah.
why you don't like the Bible is because it says you're going to go to hell if you don't trust Christ as just Savior.
That doesn't bother me because that's not why I don't like
bothers
it.
you.
No, it doesn't.
That's where you're going.
Al, you haven't given us a convincing
Jesus is
reason.
the only one that rose from the dead.
Al, you haven't given us a convincing reason.
Give me another God that rose from the dead.
Al, you haven't given us a convincing reason that this book is anything other than man-made
Give me a
myth.
God, another God that rose from the dead.
There are a lot of gods in ancient mythology that have risen from the dead. There was actually another person in the Bible who rose from the dead before Jesus. I can't recall the name. We have
Lazarus, Al.
Well, Jesus raised him up.
Yeah. Now.
Remember?
Yeah,
Jesus, Lazarus come forth.
Okay, and so there was also the skeletons that came to life and all that other stuff.
In Ezekiel, it speaks about that.
No, it's a dream.
As a
Yeah,
metaphor
it's a dream.
for the
It's
children
a
of
dream.
Israel.
It's a dream. Yeah. Now, but to answer your question, Horus came back from life. His soul was ripped out, but he got it restored.
Also, the competing.
Jesus walked on the earth for 40 days after his resurrection, and he exposed himself to 500 people at one time.
Al, and Horus.
There's no conflict here.
And-
You people,
and Al-
it's a historical fact.
And Al, Horus was king of Egypt again and again and again and
I'm talking
again.
about an historical fact that you guys are denying.
Are you saying there were no kings of Egypt, Al?
No, I'm saying that Jesus rose from the dead for 40 days to prove that he is God.
The myth for a religion that was running about the same time as Christianity also had a God who rose from the
And
dead.
if Jesus is God, and this is the book of God, when you die, when you die, you will die without Christ and die and go to hell unless you trust him as your Savior.
You've got one mean God there.
Yeah.
You
So
got a
Al,
God that means what he says and says what he means, and you don't like it.
so Al, now you just twisted the word "mean" to an
to mean what he
alternate
said.
meaning.
A very nasty God.
Carl was pointing out that the Abrahamic God is a nasty bully, and then you use
Well,
the
where do you
alternate
get that
meaning of the
from?
word.
Where do you get that from?
Just
in
the
Bible?
concept of hell itself is nasty and so obscene.
No, it's
Yes.
not.
So obscene
It's very simple to
Al?
escape going to hell.
Al?
Otherwise, you're a sinner, don't want to go there, and ask Christ to come into your heart and save you and become your Lord and Savior. And the
Right.
minute you do that, you're born again and saved and going to heaven.
I don't need to be saved from something I haven't done.
So Al,
The Bible, he says God's not willing that
We
any
need to
should
bring it to
die
a
and go
close
to
here.
hell, but that all should come to repentance.
Al, we are going to move on, and
Yeah, you don't
I'm
want to hear about the true God.
Al-
You want to talk about fantasies.
Al,
You talk about
be
Santa
civil,
Claus.
Al.
Let's
Be
talk
civil,
about
Al.
Santa Claus, huh?
Be civil, Al. So I'm going to answer the question again for Carl, and I hope you
Well,
listen.
don't answer the question for Carl. Answer my question.
All right. So, we got about 10 minutes left, and although we had a few more slides, we probably do want to get to this. So one day at the Rationalists of East Tennessee, we were having our discussion group, and I don't remember who posed the question, but the question was something along the lines, so what if you die and you discover there is a God? Meaning, there's an afterlife. And we went around the table, and there weren't too many people before me, and I don't remember their specific answers. But when it came to me, I described what my reaction would be, and I described how I was going to ask the God about all of the loose ends in physics that I was aware of. And I was assuming that this God, that to be called a God, would know not only what I knew correctly, but what I knew incorrectly, and would be, in a sense, the perfect teacher, and would answer all these physics questions that have intrigued me.
Although they did get pi wrong.
Yeah, that's that book of Yahweh that gets it wrong. So I was assuming that if there was a God, it would be the perfect teacher. That's what I wanted a God to be. And I described that. And then Carl said, but aren't you missing the point? shouldn't you ask this God about why evil is allowed to exist? And I sat there thinking, man, I really missed that. That, you know, I was imagining this God, in a sense, almost as a little toy for me to give me answers. It would be like the ultimate Google. Isn't that great? And I didn't think to ask the question about why is there evil. Why do we even have, in the English language or in any human language, the phrase child rape? If there was a just God, we wouldn't know that phrase, would we?
Yeah, I think one way I've looked at it is, when I've been asked that question, is the first thing I do is ask God why he's doing such a crappy job.
Why is there child rape?
Yep.
Why?
Surely you could do better than that. If you design a world where there's all this suffering, I think we could find a better God to do that than the one there.
All righty. Well, we've got another call yet. Let's grab it. Hello, caller. Can you give us a name or a nickname?
Sure, Kevin.
Kevin. Thank you for waiting. We've got about 8 minutes left, and we've been playing with words here. Do you have words for us, or did you have an answer for the question, what if God exists?
Well, I think I have a couple things. First of all, great show. Really enjoying it today. I learned today that I'm an atheist.
An atheist. All right.
And I've actually been struggling with coming up with a way to describe what I am. So that was really helpful. Early in the program, and I don't know that everybody who's listening to it was listening to it earlier. You made the point with one of your callers that the Bible has a talking snake, so that means that it's obviously the God of Abraham is a fairy tale, or at least those stories of fairy tales meant to entertain or instruct, but the parables or allegories or whatever. When you look at the Bible as a whole, there is a lot of supernatural stuff claimed, and it's accomplished, according to the Bible, by the power of God. Whereas I have trouble dismissing believers that quickly because they have a system that says, my God can do anything. A snake doesn't need to have, a donkey doesn't need to have a voice box and all the proper stuff to talk. If God can do anything. And I think that's something that in a lot of talking to my atheist friends, I think it's something that we miss. I hear stuff saying, well, that's fanciful. Well, yeah. But if a God is all-powerful and magical, then that seems reasonable if you accept that premise.
Yeah, I think the one thing that they miss is that God should be clear. God shouldn't be doing really weird things that don't make any sense or obviously archaic. If there really is a God, why have talking snakes? Why do things obscurely? Just show up.
That can be confused.
Yeah, just show up, make it clear the point, and demonstrate who you are, and then there won't be a question.
Yeah. Kevin,
no, and I agree with that. Yeah,
Kevin. So thank you for that, and I do have a further response because I have sprung that on believers, and they'll say, well, God can do anything He wants. And they'll respond to that even if I bring up moral conundrums. They'll say, well, God made it that way, and He can do anything He wants. And I asked the question, so I'll ask you as a hypothetical believer, Kevin, is your God so powerful that He could have made you this morning, and the childhood you think you remember didn't really exist? Is your God that powerful?
And I would have said, hypothetically, yes.
Okay, and I would say, but you do have memories of your childhood. So if there is a God that's that powerful, we can't know that for sure. We'll never know that for sure. But what we can do is we can talk about our memories of our childhood, and we can look around at the earth and see the evidence of its great age, which is like the memories of its childhood in the stones around it. And that must be a creation of the God who created your memories for the childhood you didn't have. Am I not right?
Well, yes, but then...
And therefore, The story of the earth, the story that the geology tells us, must be a story written by the one true God, if there is a one true God who is that powerful. There can be no other choice. And if it contradicts the Bible, probably the Bible is defective if the story of the geology around us contradicts it.
I think that what I was taught back in my Bible college days was the idea that science properly understood and the Bible properly understood would always be correct if truth is truth. There have been a number of things that over the time that I was a Christian, over the time that I was being taught Bible and so on from a more fundamentalist viewpoint, there are many things that
we got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, well, I don't want to keep you, but those questions don't necessarily ring very true for Christians because they've been addressed, and we assume people smarter than ourselves maybe have come up with answers to those. I mean, that's what I used to think. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's not a logical response anyway. It's probably more emotional than anything else.
Well, that's why I try and make what I think is an emotional appeal to go out and read the book of the universe, study the geology, look through telescopes, see the star-forming regions. Because if there is a deity that made that, those are marvelous stories too.
Well, yeah, and I know Christians who pursued the sciences because they wanted to understand the truth.
And during the early Renaissance, that was the motivation that made for great scientific advances. Was they thought they were going to read the book of nature and God's mind in it.
And the book had a different story.
And where they were truthful, they realized that the story diverged. Yeah. All right. So, Kevin, 30 more seconds. You got any more for us?
Oh, no. I appreciated the program today and really enjoyed learning some new things.
All right, well, I have a question for you. The talking donkey is referred to as the donkey. His owner has a name. I'm never sure the pronunciation.
Balaam.
Balaam. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. That's a question I sometimes spring on people, but I always have to say I'm not certain of the pronunciation. Yeah, so I say for brownie points, what's the second talking animal? Hey, thanks for calling, and we hope all of our callers will meet us down at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria from time to time. Goodbye. All righty. Well, we're going to have to go into our closing program here pretty soon.
I'm on the right page for a change.
All right. Start us off.
All right. I'm going to be host one this time. It's time to start wrapping things up, obviously. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
Please send us feedback. You can leave a voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
And you can see this show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time in this Knoxville station at 2200 Greenwich Mean Time at ctvknox.org.
The opinions expressed on this show are of the hosts and guests and callers, and not any official opinion of ASK or RET. We would like to thank Sam for technical support, Alita for screening the calls, and the staff at CTV Knox, and all of our callers and viewers.
Nones, those who identify with no religion, are the fastest growing religious group in America. Right here in East Tennessee, the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee are places you can find fellowship and fun.
Remember, you are not alone, even if you don't believe in God here in East Tennessee.